Hi, I'm James Blackwell. I'm co-chair of Croakey Health Media and an academic in Indigenous policy at the ANU.
And you've just spoken at the LINA conference on a panel about journalism and the media. What advice do you have for Australian media on how to cover issues in the lead up to the federal election?
I think it's important that we don't show a false sense of balance by pitting up sides against another one for one. You know, we saw it during climate change debates, getting one climate denier and one climate scientist. We saw it during The Voice, getting one yes and one no. I think balance is meant to show people actually the true scale of things in this country. So we're talking about housing, or we're talking about in the environment, we need to actually be balanced in a real world sense, not in a sort of false journalism sense. I think also to be good this election to get an increased coverage of independent candidates and members. I think many Australians are indicating they're looking to likely vote for an independent or a non-major party candidate. But the media, I think, is still very much stuck in this major party, Liberal Labor, even Liberal Labor national battle, that they kind of neglect these third party independent candidates at their own peril, because these candidates are increasingly popular amongst Australians and people want to hear about what they stand for and what they're going to do if elected. And if we do get a minority government, as seems likely by the polling, you know, Australians are going to potentially go in underinformed on these people and their issues and their values.
What are some of the health issues you'd like to know about from independents?
I think Indigenous health is a big one. You know, are they going to commit to funding that to a level that's serious and ongoing? What are they going to do to address the imbalances in state and federal health funding? You know, especially as someone who lives in a regional area too, what is regional health funding going to look like? Are we going to have better access to regional health care going forward? Currently, it's, you know, substandard. I think most people living in a regional area would agree. So what are independent candidates going to do to help push that forward, especially if they're an independent regional candidate? What's their view on regional healthcare and regional health access?
James, thanks for mentioning regional Australia, and that's a topic that's come up quite a bit today at the LINA Summit. Can you talk a little bit about the news landscape in regional Australia, just as you see it as someone who lives in regional Australia, and what people living in those areas, leaders in those areas and people working in those areas can do to improve it?
Yeah, I think regional Australia definitely is a media desert. There's a lot less variety of information that's being presented. You know, most of the papers are owned by one or two corporations or individuals, so there's definitely a lack of diversity of views around local issues and local stories. And the media rooms that do exist in the country, they're often underfunded or understaffed, so they're not able to cover the stories to the depth that I think regional people want. There's a real hunger and desire amongst regional Australians for news about their area, for news about what affects them and about what's going on in their world, and it's just not being presented in a way that's accessible to them, or even that it's not being presented at all. So I think, you know, as a regional, you know, as a person who lives in regional Australia, I'd like to see a greater focus from newsrooms where they can on regional stories and what it means for regional people, not just here's what's happening in the country and what it means for you in the city, but actually here's what's happening in the country and what that means for those people, because that's really important. And they're still, you know, very much a part of this country in terms of the political makeup, and the stories that are happening out there do affect the city, but it's, you know, it's important we focus on regional stories for their own value, not just for their value to our city counterparts.